entertainment. It is a huge and major part of our lives. And this is where we talk about it every first and third Sunday right here at KUAW Radio with Up Close and Cultural with Dr. Karisha. Today, we are going to talk about something very, very current and relevant that is going on in our city today on the Missouri side. With me today, I have Miss J. Gray.
Hello, hello.
She is running for a seat on the Kansas City Public School Board. I will give her the opportunity to introduce herself properly, and we will have a discussion about her platform and what she plans to bring to the Kansas City School Board, which is a lot, and I am excited for you guys to hear about it. I do want to encourage you guys to go to the polls on Tuesday. It is Tuesday,
yes,
right?
Yes, ma'am. This Tuesday.
This Tuesday, April 4th, and vote. And I want to say this, and we will repeat it throughout the program, that Jay Gray, Jay-Gray, is a write-in candidate. You will not see her name on the ballot. So what that means is exactly what I said. She is a write-in candidate, which means that you will have to go to the polls and vote. And then while you're there, you will need to go to where it says the school board, Kansas City Public School Board. Is there, what district is it?
Subdistrict 4. So everyone in Subdistrict 4, it will be on the bottom of your ballots.
Okay. The bottom of the ballot, Subdistrict 4. Write in her name, J-A-Y, Gray. Okay, for Kansas City Public School Board, Subdistrict 4. So let me pause right there and let me introduce you to Miss Gray.
All right. Thank you. First, thank you for inviting me and letting me come and speak to you and your audience today. So my name is Jay Gray. I am a Kansas City native, born and raised. So I am actually fourth generation KCPS attendee. So my family has been in the district since before integration. And so I actually did not graduate from the district. I graduated from University Academy, which is one of kind of those sparks as to why I'm running. So with that, I have a background in education. So my first degree is actually in history from the University of Missouri, Kansas City, where I did my research focus specifically on the effects of de facto segregation on the Kansas City Public School District. So I have been very interested in the Kansas City Public School District and their outcomes for a very long time. And I, made sure that I continued that research even while I was in undergrad. So post-grad, I worked in Kansas City Public Schools as a college advisor, and that's where I found my passion. So I love education, but where I found that I make the biggest difference and I feel like I make the biggest impact is specifically in that post-secondary outcome sector. So when we talk about the college and career access and success, as well as just kind of making sure that we are keeping students retained if they are going to college and helping them graduate. So that's where I found that my, that's my focus, but education in general is my passion.
Awesome. That is remarkable. So you do actually have a background in education, and it sounds like you come from a background of educators.
I actually don't. So
no?
Unfortunately, I'm not one of the success stories of the district. So I'm fourth generation KCPS, but I was the first to graduate in my line. And I did not graduate from KCPS. That, in turn to my family, like that says just kind of a lot of the struggles that we have had to kind of endure throughout all of these different times and periods of Kansas City Public Schools.
Absolutely. And I say that because I actually that is something that I push for when it comes to academics, is that especially with the time that we are living in, and with just coming out of a national pandemic and resources not being as available as they used to, along with other challenges. But our finances can be stretched sometimes. So the traditional education, or as I was brought up, it was, finish high school and go straight to college. But now college is not always an option, not the traditional four-year college as it was, when I was brought up. But I am a huge advocate of furthering your education, whatever that looks like for you. And so I heard you say that you specialize, or you're good in the area of post-secondary education. And so I will say that my family I was privileged to have both sides. My grandmother, highly educated. She was one of the first black females to complete master's degree at Tuskegee University. And, even before that, my family was part of generations that built Tuskegee University, literally made the bricks, with Booker T. Washington, George Washington Carver, and, built Tuskegee University. And then I have my grandfather's side, who did not go to college. He was military. However, he has the education in his own right, and still gained a wealth of knowledge from him. And he was able to, through his trades, sustain a family of, a lot of kids. I would say there were more than 10. Okay, but that's what I mean as far as bringing those options to the forefront for the students, because some of them don't see the four-year college as an option, but that doesn't mean that they won't be successful, but it takes someone to be able to introduce that to them. So how would you address that in Kansas City?
Absolutely. So that's why I focus, when I say my focus is on post-secondary outcomes, not education, because yes, I work in universities. I primarily work with college students, but a lot of my students that I've worked with did not go to college. So I like to talk about what's best for you. I'm big on finding the best fit for each student. So a part of my strategy when it comes to coaching is just kind of knowing each individual person. I think that's very important. And so as a school board member, I'm not going to be able to know each individual student in my schools. But I do think it's important that we establish policies and goals that allow these students to explore different career options earlier. So, if we are only allowing them to kind of find out what their options are junior year, senior year, it limits them on the options that they can actually search for and find that may not be a college route, right? For example, I've had students come to me and they wanted to, be an automotive tech or something like that. Yeah, we can definitely, I don't know why you would want to go to college. You can go to college. If you want a four-year degree, definitely go. But there are other options, other avenues. So, we can send you to the career tech at Penn Valley. We can look for apprenticeships. We can do all those different things. And so it takes not only creating these goals, but also relationships. I think that especially when it comes to career, we need to create more relationships with individuals in these careers throughout the community. There are individuals who are willing to kind of take some of these students under their wings and teach them their trades. And so we have to kind of connect those individuals with our students to make sure that we are giving them as many options as possible.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought that up. That was actually going to be my next question, because I found that if you look at the history of education, trade programs used to be a big part. I remember when I was in high school, that was the FBLA, the Future Business Leaders of America, and I'm from Alabama, so I know you'll hear my country accent jump out every now and again, but we even had the FFA, the Future Farmers of America, and all of that.
They get good scholarships.
Excellent. Very good. But part of the curriculum was, along with also the automotive, and I remember we even had, it wasn't yes, it was a greenhouse. We did have a greenhouse outside my high school when the new one was built. But part of the curriculum was actually being hands-on in the automotive department, or you were out there with the plants, or you were out there with the cattle, whatever the trade was, you were a part of it. And then if your goal was to go to the four-year college, then you were on the college campus. So as you said, everything was individualized. And I was fortunate enough to have, or to be in an educational environment to where that it kind of came natural. It was a part of it. And I will just have to say, you just don't see that. And that's not a Kansas City thing. They actually have taken those trade programs out of the school system.
But not all of them, because a lot of our suburban schools have great trade programs. There's a decent amount of these ones around the city that do. And I know KCPS,
Absolutely.
like, I'm not saying that they don't. They have VOTEC. They do. But I do think that is where, so one of the main things that I feel that I am different from other candidates is that I'm very big on student voice. So making sure that we talk to the students and get their input and their opinions as well. So, for example, when it comes to the VOTEC program, individuals who are, who don't really kind of interact with the students who go to VOTEC or want to go to VOTEC, you would know, like, okay, well, yes, they get this opportunity, they get to go and they take all of these trade courses and things like that, and this is a great program. But once you talk to the students and you realize there's a lot of students who can't go, like a lot of the students who would most benefit from VOTEC, they can't go because by the time you are allowed to go, it's your junior year when they make these decisions, and no one has basically made sure help them stay on track to even be able to meet the requirements to go to VOTEC. So you have to be graduating, you have to be on track with your credits and requirements. You have to have, like, there's certain requirements that you have to meet, and we're not telling the students early enough, like, hey, if you want to do this later, like, these are the things you have to do. And I think that goes with both college and career, because I worked at Central, and a lot of my students did not start talking about college till junior year. That's something that we have to start the conversation much earlier, because if they are starting these conversations junior year, they get a limited amount of time to try out different careers, to find people in different careers and talk to them, because trades and college aren't even the only option. There's great careers that you can have without doing either. I have one of my mentees. She came to me asking about, like, if she should switch her job, because she was getting offered a job in banking. And I'm like, absolutely. Like, this is something that is a career, like, that you don't need to go into having that college degree, and you can still move up, like, and you don't need a trade or a degree for that, right? So, but we have to put these options in front of the students and show them, like, to be a financial advisor, you need a certificate. You don't need a degree. Like, there's so many different ways that you can be successful. And I think that especially our communities, Black communities, we aren't exposed to as many different careers as other people. And so it limits it in our minds of what we can achieve and where we can go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm so glad that you said that. I'm definitely going to have to talk to you about that in detail later, because there is actually a program down south that I helped to implement through the Goodwill Industries that did that, because you also have real estate and things of that nature. But there is, just to give you a little background about it, there's a college, I think it's Columbus Tech. It's Columbus Tech. And so what Goodwill Industries did is they came in, and pretty much what you said, Synovus, which is the big bank down there, for example, they would have an accountant come in, give them a classroom, they would teach class. A lot of these trades or vocational skills, you just need hours up under your mentor, and then you will be able to get your certification. And that's what they did. They taught the class, they shadowed them at work, and then before you knew it, you had some of the kids would come out with these certificates or these trades before they came out of high school, and then they're able to go straight into the business sector right out of high school.
And that's how it should,
so,
because this is our workforce. Like, we always talk about, like, all the jobs that we can't fill, and all, this is where the
Absolutely.
people are coming from. Like, why are we not
Absolutely.
trying to catch them while they're in high school? And then I also feel like giving these students the opportunity. So one of the biggest things that like used to irritate me at Central was like, we know my students got to work. Like, we know there's a lot of students. I didn't even go to Central. I went to UA and I had 2 jobs my senior year. Like, just because somebody goes to a certain school does not mean that, they have a certain lifestyle and they don't have to do certain things. So a lot of our students have to work, have to take care of families, have to do all these other things. And so one in particular, like there was UPS. They had this deal with Central. I don't know if it was at other schools, but it was specifically, I know it was at Central. And basically, the certain students, I believed you had to be 18 years old, but there's a significant amount of them. They got to work for UPS. But what that looked like is them kind of picking them up at like 10 p.m. and dropping them back off at the school at like 1 or 2. And they have to go to school at 7. So how is this helping them? How is this benefiting them? Like, yes, they need the money, and I feel like a lot of my students needed the money, so they needed the job, and it just made sense to them. But how do we make sure that we're giving these students the opportunities to learn these skills and make the money at the same time? How do we connect with these businesses? How do we, like you said, the apprenticeships? How do we make sure that when we're putting them out there, it's not just to volunteer, it's not just to do a lot of these things? Because yes, volunteering is important, but a lot of students don't have the time to just volunteer all of their time. Like, they need to be able to make some money while they're doing that. Otherwise, they're not going to come. They're going to go to work.
Right. And that is what you talked about just a little bit ago about relationships. Because if the teachers, the school board if they had that liaison to be that go-between with the school, or even just themselves, making that a part of what the school system does, then that would be someone who could be there. Because let's just say that was the only option that UPS had. Then because you don't want to let a job like that go, So because the benefits and just what UPS can bring to someone's life. But just taking that, what happens at UPS that could possibly be course credit?
Right.
So that maybe when they get off at 1 or 2, they don't have to be at school, because those first few classes
we can adjust
they've gained that education requirements, or maybe not go to school that next day that they're off. That they're working. Yes. So there are options, but it takes a conversation.
It does.
And from conversations, it's because of that relationship.
Yes.
So you have a lot of great ideas. I love it. But also, one thing when it comes to students and their education is them being in an environment where they can learn. And a part of that is safety.
Yes. So
what do you imagine or seeing, or maybe I should say, what do you think about as far as safety?
So when it comes to safety in schools, I think that all schools would benefit from more mental and emotional health services in general. Our students are going through a lot. They have, a lot, not all of them, but a lot of them, are coming to school. They have all of this trauma in life or things that they've experienced previously, and they're still coming and putting forth the effort. Some of them might not put forth the best effort, but how do we figure out how to, they're there. And like, that's what I used to have to say all the time at Central. Like, at least they hear y'all. Like, we have to figure out, like, let's talk to them and figure out how to continue to get them here until, they do have that motivation to actually succeed. But again, like you said, those relationships, and I think that, different supports and counseling, like, figure what that looks like would be up to, each individual school and the counselors and the staff. I think that it takes for all the stakeholders to come together, as well as bringing in students. What do you think would work? Because, like, I already know I have a brother that I have custody of, and so he's a senior. He, like, in general, if you put them in a room and like, oh, you need to do some counseling, they're not, there's a connotation to that, especially in Black communities or minority communities. So how do you work around that? What type of programs or things can you put in place that still allows them to get this counseling type thing without it feeling like an actual counseling situation, right? Like, does that mean that we have like group sessions, or we do things with them just I think helping them kind of work through some of these traumas and helping them work through that anger and learning. Like, I know I had to learn as an adult. Like I said, I'm from the inner city. Like, I come from the same communities that a lot of our students are coming from. And so I had to learn as an adult how to respond to being upset, how to respond to anger, how, what reactions are appropriate, what reactions are not appropriate. And I think, especially in the community I grew up in, a lot of my reactions were appropriate, but they're not appropriate as an adult. Like, there's certain things that, yes, we have to kind of leave there. And even as a child, it shouldn't be appropriate. But how do we change that mindset? Because right now, that's the mindset. It was the mindset when I was a kid. So I know that that's the mindset for them. And so, again, it is about relationships. I know the students that used to, when I was at Central, the ones who I knew fought all the time, like, those are some of the ones I had best relationships with, because I'm talking every time they're in trouble, I'm pulling it back here. Now what happened? Like, what do we talk about? Like, what happened there? And after a while, now they're in their heads, like, all right, if I swing on you, Miss Gray gonna say something to me, so I'm just gonna walk away, right? Like, you have to figure out, like, what motivates them. I would figure out, like, what makes you want to come to school? Like, for those of you who actually want to be here, like, there was one in particular, she really wanted to go to college, and I'm like, baby, I can't get you there if you keep fighting. Like, I need you to help me help you, right? Like, so how we have to figure out what would work for them. Each student is different. And so how do you handle certain behavior issues? So outside of that, I also am very big on, like, I love the new restorative justice type programs that are being implemented in different schools throughout the country. And so for people who don't know what that is, it's basically the opportunity. It helps students evaluate their behaviors in a more adult way. So instead of just suspending someone who gets in trouble, you pull them in and you ask them, like, what happened? They're going to explain it to you. What happened? Why might that have been an issue? How do you think we should handle this? What do you think the punishment should be? And it gives the students more autonomy, and it also keeps them out of the streets. Suspension, it has proven that suspension is not the best way for this to work. So what else could we do? And so, just kind of creating these opportunities for students to feel more confident and comfortable in, okay, yes, I messed up, but it's not the end of the world. Because we know that sometimes, like, you might have a fight, but what happens? That does not have that doesn't determine who you are as a person, and it doesn't determine what the rest of your high school experience is going to look like. So what did you learn from it? And so kind of implementing a little more of those type practices into the district, and especially the mental and emotional health services, I believe will definitely help with that safety.
Absolutely. And that's the key, is reframing it and normalizing it, because just what you said, them coming to you and processing it is therapy in and of itself.
Exactly.
So them finding that safe space to, again, process it with you is no different than actually going to that school counselor or that mental health therapist. It's still therapy.
Exactly.
So it is getting into the minds of the children as well as the adults that is healthy, that having a therapist is healthy. I have one. I need it.
Yes.
I need it. So, and I make no apologies about it, and I don't try to hide it. Even being in this field, life comes at you, and you have to be able to process it, especially when I'm the one that people come to with their things.
You gotta let it go.
Exactly. And I still have my life on top of everybody else's life. So so having that and changing the conversation and what it looks like with the kids is very important.
Yes.
And which leads to the next topic is the children are very important. But they would not be able to, you can't sustain this environment without our teachers.
Yes.
Our teachers have gone through just as much as the children have. And so with everything that you have talked about and put in place for the children, how do you envision sustaining the teacher motivation and addressing teacher retention, and then everything that the teachers have had to go through?
I'm glad you asked me that, because I think that mental health, and that needs to be for everybody. Because one thing that I personally experienced, so working at Central while I was there, this is not including people I lost after I stopped working there, while I was there, I lost about 3 students that I knew. And so those are just the ones that I interacted with consistently. That's not including all the rest of the students that my students knew, that, you know, their friends, like they've lost so many people. And at no point did I see any real like trauma type, you know, counseling or services available to them. And the teachers deserve it too, because the teachers are building these relationships. And we can't, like, you know, the violence in Kansas City is a problem, and it is things that we can, you know, work on, but it's not something that teachers are going to be able to stop. Like a lot of that, what happens when they leave there, we can't, you know, hold their hand and control it. So when something does happen, it affects everybody. It affects the entire community. And even if it's not someone in the school, our students are losing family members just in general, right? So how do we address that? And I definitely believe that those services I spoke of were not just for the students. Those are for all the staff involved. And I'm very, like, as a teacher, I do kind of realize that there are certain supports that should be available. So one, shout out to KCPS for raising that minimum teacher wage. So that was, you know, awesome. One of the biggest things that I spoke about at the beginning of my race, but that has been done, and shout out to them for that. But when it comes to retention, how do we keep them? And so with that, I believe that, you know, offering different services and supports to our teachers, allowing them, you know, if we as a teacher, like, you know, if I had to focus on my standards and just this upcoming test, and I know like that there's these students that we need to review this multiplication with, we can't do that because we have this test coming up. So how do we work with our teachers in order to create, you know, that the curriculum that works, or the standards that work, and things like that? And that will definitely kind of help alleviate a little bit of the stresses that they have, providing them, you know, ample PD opportunities that, you know, seem beneficial, not just come and speak to us, but how else can I, like, become a better teacher? And so we really definitely should provide those additional supports to teachers. What that looks like, again, I'm very big on stakeholder voice. So in order to decide what that looks like for the schools and what to change for the teachers, we need to ask the teachers, what do y'all need? What type of supports would you need from the district? You know, things that the board can specifically do, and what do you need from your schools? Because sometimes if you look at what they're asking for from their schools, a lot of that are things that priorities and goals that the board can set to help the schools kind of get on track with that. So those are definitely some of the concerns as far as, like, trying to retain the teachers.
I'm glad you said that, because in talking to a lot of the teachers, I would say that all of the teachers that I've had conversations with on both sides of the borders, is that they have not had the support that they wish that they had. And that's not to say that they don't get support, because I have not heard them say that. But along with everything that you said, teachers now are faced with not having control of their classrooms. So not only are they having to deal with the stressors and the trauma and the issues that come along with just being a teacher, they also are not in control of what they teach anymore.
Yes, and that's a big piece. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, that teachers aren't in a lot of control of what they teach. And especially with, I think a lot of schools, like I've seen some schools kind of changing it and rotating around this, but especially after COVID, the achievement gap was significantly higher than it was before COVID. Like it dropped and they had to catch up. So if they don't have the opportunity to actually, you know, teach some of these background information that the students may have missed, and they're just jumping straight to what's going to be on this test, the student's not understanding anything. I don't even know this, so I don't know how you expect me to know this, but I'm going to sit here and let you teach it. But I do think that, like, you know, we should talk to the teachers a little more about curriculum and, you know, how that works, how it affects their classrooms. One thing that I noticed as a teacher, when we say, you know, the teacher voice and that they got the teacher voice to make these inputs, a lot of it's coming directly from administration. administration. Administration is not in the classrooms, right? Like yes, they can talk to the teachers, but did they sit down? Did they have a town hall? Did they ask all of their teachers and then take that back as a teacher voice? Or is it just like, I observed this and this is what I think should be implemented based on what my teachers are doing? Like, we have to actually sit them down and ask them what type of supports and what things do you need to be successful in your job.
Right, right. I know that there were a lot of teachers that heard that and loved that suggestion, and hope that that will be implemented.
Yes.
Regardless who is put in that seat, because that is so needed. So this has been a great conversation, yes. And I know that this is a fluid conversation and something that is ongoing. So I thank you so much for coming. Do you have any last or parting words? And definitely let our viewers know how they can find you and support you.
Yes. So again, thank you for having me. Thank you all for listening. So my name is Jay Gray, and I'm running for Kansas City Public Schools School Board, Subdistrict 4. So again, that's JAYGRAY. So you will have to write my name in when you go to the polls. If you would like to follow me on any social media, you can find me at JGray4KC. And I would love to connect. If you have any questions, feel free to email me it's also JAYGRAY4KC @gmail.com. And thank you all. Please get out and vote on April 4th. No matter who you vote for, I would hope that you vote for me. But no matter who you vote for, this is a very important election. So please make sure you get out and vote.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much, and good luck on Tuesday.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And we're back, Kansas City. We have another guest with us right here on Up Close and Culture with Dr. Karisha. We have another candidate for the Kansas City Public School District. Her name is Monica Curls. I will add, just as the other candidate, she is also a write-in candidate. That's as correct. Well. So just as we talked about before, on Tuesday, when you go vote, not if you go vote, but when you go vote on Tuesday. Now, are you Subdistrict?
Also for Subdistrict 4,
Subdistrict 4,
yes.
and she has it on her shirt as well. I love that. When you write it in, you look on the ballot, and it's because her name will not be on there. So you have to go to the ballot. Under Subdistrict 4, it will say write in, and you will have to write her name, Monica Curls. Monica, Monica, Curls, Curls, okay? And that is for Subdistrict 4 with the Kansas City, Missouri Public School District.
That's correct.
Okay, and so without further ado, I will let Miss Monica Curls introduce herself.
Okay. So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And thank you for all the listeners that are out there today. My name is Monica Curls, as you mentioned. I'm running for Kansas City Public Schools Board of Directors representing Subdistrict 4. And I'm born and raised here in Kansas City. It took us about 3 minutes to get here to the W.B. Du Bois Learning Center. That's the home where I grew up with my mother. And if I went 4 minutes the other direction, then I'd be at my own home. So long-term resident of Kansas City, had the opportunity to attend Georgetown University for college, and then also have a couple of master's degrees from Avila here in Kansas City. Just am really passionate about youth and children and making sure they have the same opportunities that I had. I actually spent my whole life in Catholic schools because my family was Catholic, raised Catholic, you went to Catholic schools. But I don't think that that's an opportunity that should, of a quality education should just be afforded to me or people from my kind of background. I think that that's an important thing that all students and children in our neighborhoods need to have as part of their lived experience. And, you know, here in Kansas City, we have this great sports teams and, you know, talking about all these great stadiums and great events coming to the city. And we keep treating our children like an afterthought. And this city will never be great until we make them a priority. And that is really why I'm wanting to join the Kansas City Public Schools Board of Directors.
Wow. Wow, I've never heard it termed that way, but I can't say that I don't agree. So you being a Kansas City native, and I understand that you were a part of the, I would say, Catholic school system, but one thing that I can say is that when you bring in different experiences, it lets the children know that they have options.
Yes, absolutely. And that was, I was actually just at Genesis School on Friday speaking to some of their seventh graders there. And that's really what I was emphasizing. You know, I recognize that my background and lived experience is going to be different from theirs. So I didn't want to talk to them, you know, kind of condescendingly, acting as if, oh, if you just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you know, that's not their experience. They didn't kind of, a lot of them didn't start with some of the advantages that I had, but still letting them know there's still some opportunities available to you. And I was just asking them to be curious, you know, so, you know, maybe your family life might not be as supportive as mine, but think about who are those supportive adults that you can have in your life, and really cling on to them. Because even if you're in seventh grade and you think you know it all and you can do it all, there's going to be a time when adults are going to really be able to help you to propel your opportunities. And so really finding that supportive adult that can continue to be a mentor to you. And then I mentioned about how just being curious about your surroundings and seeing what other things are available to you. You know, I've had the opportunity to travel overseas, and that has been a very rich experience for me. You know, but some of the children in our area, like, haven't even left their neighborhoods. You know, there are adults in this city who've never been to the plaza. And some of that might be because, you know, they weren't always known for treating us well. But I mean, they're just other parts of even this community. Yeah, but even this community that they just haven't even explored or even know or understand. And so that was really the emphasis of what I was talking about, is just being curious and letting yourself be open to new experiences and opportunities. And I think that's kind of the first step in helping to see other paths that might be available to you.
Right, and that is so important. I'll, you know, ask you the same thing that I asked Ms. Gray when she was here, because one thing that I found with the students here, and still keeping with the theme of the different backgrounds, is that different does not mean better.
Absolutely.
And so it's about affording children options.
Yes.
And so what looked good for my life may not look good for yours, but it doesn't mean that my path was any better than yours, because there are various fields.
Yes.
And you can excel as a real estate agent and make X amount of dollars or the same amount of money that I make, which is a field that you don't have to go to a 4-year college for, or a plumber or a welder, who some of them make $50-something, $60-something an hour. Yeah. But in order for that to happen, our children have to be exposed to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so how do you feel about that and bringing that to the Kansas City School District?
Well, I agree with what you've said wholeheartedly. You know, I was blessed to be endorsed by the AFL-CIO and several other unions for exactly that reason, because I recognize that not everybody's path is a 4-year degree. And there are some good, and we need to stop treating non-4-year degree options as if they're the lesser option. Like, these are first choice, high paying jobs through, like someone was just telling me when I went to meet with the laborers the other day that an elevator mechanic and operator can make $68 an hour. And that's like right after they finish their apprenticeship. They can then go into a high paying job, and $68 an hour is like I should know this, like $120,000-$130,000 a year. That's a good, especially in Kansas City. That's an excellent salary. But we keep acting as if, well, if you're not successful here, then this is your option, as if that's like I said, a second option. And if they want to go into college, I wholeheartedly support them. Let's figure out how we can make them be successful. But just letting them know there are other options, and bringing the unions into the schools so that they can help expose them to these kind of opportunities, I think is going to be really important to creating important pathways to success for all of our children.
Absolutely. I love that answer. So, because I'm a big advocate of, I'll say this. When I look at education the same way I look at my own clients. So when someone walks through the door, the goal is not to keep a person in therapy forever. That very first day that you are with them, you do an assessment and you find out what the needs are. And then from there, you write the treatment plan and you set the goals to transition them out, whatever that looks like. And so in my mind, that is what education should look like.
Yeah.
And so when they come into high school, even before then, but I'm just thinking about high school right now, the way that it's set up. So when you come into the 9th grade and you are given those skills tests, and definitely having conversations with children about what they want to do and how they see their lives. And definitely that's not the one and only conversation, because we know that that's a fluid conversation and it's going to change.
Yeah.
But at least you get them to start talking about it. And then that is what the rest of the track of their high school career should look like.
Yes, exactly.
Right? So, that's just my thinking about what it should look like. And so then what you should be adding to the curriculum at school. And like you said, building those relationships with the unions or with the universities or whatever the case may be, because it's student-centered.
Yes.
And not just tunnel vision focused on a 4-year degree.
Yeah, and I think it really is about, what does success look like as educators for this child? Like, and recognizing that plan is going to look different for every single child. And we need to be able, as a district, to be more fluid in how we present those educational options that gives them a path to success. Excuse me. That gives them a path to success. And like I said, that's going to look different for every child. So that's a lot of individualized instruction, path making. But I think it's essential. That's what happens in, kind of the Catholic schools, the more foo-foo schools that, they're doing that. And we need to find more efficient ways to do that for our students as well, because they deserve that as well.
Absolutely. And also, in order for things like that to happen, we have to start creating environments to where our children feel safe to learn and then to communicate what that is, and then to be able to change their minds. Yeah.
Yep.
But the issue also with Kansas City is that, and this is not my thinking. I actually send out whatever I'm going to talk about, and I get emails from people, or I talk to them. But the concern is school safety, and it's not just about gun violence, and definitely sending out our condolences to the families of what happened in Nashville on last week. But so that those types of things don't happen here in Kansas City, but just there is our own type of issues
Yeah.
with school safety that the children feel here.
Yeah.
So as someone who will potentially sit on the or be a part of the board, how do you feel about school safety
Yeah.
or
So,
improving it?
yeah, school safety is definitely important. The children in our community are given to our district. The parents trust us that we're going to be able to keep their children safe. But I think that I think any school district, it is continuing to be a challenge to do that, just because there's so many other factors that we can't even necessarily control within the school building. And some of that is around psychological safety, making sure that we are creating those safe environments where children can only learn, as you said, can communicate how they're feeling, can learn respectful ways to communicate and to deal with issues, are learning how to handle certain challenges. I think a lot of what I'm noticing with some of the in-school violence is it's around children who don't have good coping mechanisms. So when they're challenged or when something is frustrating, they act out in sometimes violent or at least non-helpful ways. And so how do we, bring in that social emotional learning element into the classroom so that everyone's learning how to be respectful with one another, both teachers to the students and students to the teachers, students to one another. How do we expand more of the restorative justice models in schools so that children can be the authors of their own solutions and own kind of arbitrators of peace amongst each other. I think there are tools that are out there. It's just about how do we have all the schools utilizing those tools, reflecting those tools so that the students can have that be part of their toolbox when they're figuring out how to interact with one another.
Right. The mental health piece is absolutely needed and very important. For my last point and question for you is I believe that it goes both ways because even in speaking with the teachers, our teachers are not feeling very supported. Not that they don't feel any support, because they do, but our teachers have gone through as much as the children have with COVID and with this big transition. And then also with not having the autonomy and the control over their classrooms as well, with their curriculums, what they teach and how they teach, and then everything that comes behind that, because so many things have become politicized. So even with that, as speaking about safety with our children, let's talk about how do you envision safety mentally, physically, and those supportive services for our teachers as well.
So anytime I meet a teacher, I say thank you for your service. Absolutely. Because they are in the trenches and probably dealing with some of the same emotional issues that even some of our armed forces are, and getting it from multiple sides. You don't see people sometimes as supportive of teachers the way they are of our military. And, sometimes they're, especially with these school shootings, teachers' lives are on the line too. Absolutely. Right now. Absolutely. And so, I like that the district has, for at least this next school year, they've instituted that each month they're going to have one day of teacher development. So one full day, instead of it being like 3 hours, one afternoon a month, they're actually focusing one day for teacher development. And they're going to provide other supports, because it's hard for parents to have one day a month that they're not going to, so they're going to have other supports like childcare and things like that. I know that they're working that out. But I think that's a step in the right direction of recognizing that our teachers deserve those same supports that we are asking our teachers to provide for our students, and giving them an opportunity to develop as teachers. I am definitely supportive of the additional pay that we've increased the starting pay for our teachers to be one of the highest in the state, I believe. And so that's a great step in the right direction as far as retention. I think that we need to be instead of thinking that we're going to teach the same thing in the same way across the district, we need to recognize that doesn't work anywhere. You can't teach students that are very different and come from very different experiences the exact same way and think it's going to be effective. And so I think what she's looking to do is when we see those successful teachers and we see those successful classrooms, let's look at what is it that they're doing that's creating those successes, and how do we replicate that in other schools. I think it's great that we have this Lincoln, high school that is this model for the nation as far as education, but we shouldn't have one Lincoln. We should have 5. All of our high schools should be as good as Lincoln. So what is it that we're doing at Lincoln, and how do we replicate that across the entire district so that not only are students experiencing that success, but the teachers are also experiencing the same supports and successes as they are in our top schools.
Right. All excellent points. It sounds like you have a vision and a plan, and definitely how you plan to implement that if you are a part of the board. I definitely thank you for coming. I wish you luck. I wish you well on Tuesday. Again, I encourage everyone to go out and vote on Tuesday. Thank you, Ms. Monica, for coming. Let our viewers know as we exit how they can find you and support you, and where they can find you on social media.
Okay. So thank you again for having me. I really do appreciate this. And 2 days, Election Day, April 4th. My name is Monica Curls, Monica Curls. I can be found on my website is www.curls4kckids.com. You can also find me on Facebook, the same page, Curls for KC Kids, and on Instagram, also Curls for KC Kids _2023. I think that's where you can find me. I'm excited for the opportunity, and I look forward to continuing to engage with the community as we move forward.
All right. Well, thank you again for coming. And you guys have a good evening, and we will see you guys on the third Sunday.